Halo Combat Evolved is a wonderful game. It is a beautiful balance of gameplay, story, and atmosphere that launched a console and created an iconic universe and characters. Oh god, I can hear him.
The iconic one-liners.
But I'm not talking about all of that. Go watch Reykjavik's video if you want the history lesson. I'm gonna show you how to play Halo, because I am a professional. Well, not really, but I've played a lot of Halo, and I know a few things about stomping Bungie-ordained aliens in the face with a size 20 Spartan boot. I will, of course, be playing this on Legendary. I have not played Combat Evolved on Legendary before, outside of co-op, because I've always been a bit of a heroic man myself. The ultra-violence of the Halo games, if you will. But the true gentleman's way of playing Halo Combat Evolved is Legendary. It's the test of a true fan. It's the Halo Credibility Man card that makes Halo Twitter cream their George with 343 hating excitement. It's also the only game in the series that has a balanced Legendary difficulty. So there's that. Don't even think about asking me to do Halo 2. So you start off as John Halo himself in a giant frozen can of Chef Boyardee as the Covenant, after destroying the UNSC Fortress Rolls of Reach, decides to board your ship, the Pillar of Autumn, and destroy it. Captain Keyes races you from cryosleep to repel the Covenant boarding action. You meet him on the bridge and he gives you Cortana, your blue Vocaloid girlfriend, and he also gives you the Magnum, the best weapon in this game. Okay, first, some ground rules. The assault rifle, love this thing. It's easily my favorite variant of the weapon in the series, which says something because all of them feel really, really good. And it's probably my favorite assault rifle style weapon in science fiction, even beating out things like the various Star Wars blasters and the pulse rifle from Aliens, which this game takes a lot from. Get rid of it. What you really want and need is the Magnum. It being headshot capable combined with its range will make this your most reliable weapon outside of power weapons and the shotgun. This should not be a surprise. It's the Halo 1 pistol. It's one of the most overpowered weapons in the history of video games. Hell, it was even brought back in Halo 5 and it functioned the same way there. I don't want to talk about it. The first enemy you're going to encounter are the Grunts. These are small dudes that, while harmless on their own and being cannon fodder, when in large groups, they act as grenade-spamming walls of plasma, along with the occasional needler. Your best answer for dealing with groups of them is to take pot shots at them from mid-range with the pistol, and once they start to scatter, to just rush in and smack them in the back. On the complete opposite end of this spectrum, the elites are everything the Grunts aren't. They're big, they're tough, they're mean, and they will not retreat. They are armed with plasma rifles and energy shields, and they mirror the player's skill and capabilities. They come in several variants. The blue minor and red major are more common, with more powerful variants appearing later on in the game. Thankfully, the plasma pistol, dropped by the Grunt in excessive quantities, is the kryptonite of any shielded enemy, as a charged blast will knock out the shields, allowing for a quick follow-up melee attack or a headshot, putting down split lid for good. Your loadout throughout the entirety of the game should be some type of precision weapon combined with the plasma pistol or plasma rifle, and these are incredibly useful at taking out Covenant forces. Emphasis on Covenant forces! Most of the level is spent in gray corridors. You end up going through the armory, the giant area with the stairs, and you basically just have to make your way to a lifeboat. Given the amount of cover you have, despite the amount of enemies you're going up against, it's not that hard. Just pop in and out of cover, use the plasma pistol, and do everything I've just said. After you make your way to the lifeboat, the ship entirely begins to explode, and then you see the ring. And then you begin to crash onto the ring, leading to one of the best environmental reveals in the history of video games.
Chief? Chief, can you hear me? At last. Are you alright? Can you move?
This game is absolutely beautiful. Seriously, its environmental design is still mesmerizing despite how the graphics have aged. And this ran on a console in 2001, and the only time game environments were like this in an FPS was Unreal, and that was a PC exclusive title. Halo was a technical marvel for the time, and this reveal of the environment out of the pod absolutely shows that. Anyways, you make your way through the foothills playing duck hunt with banshees as you encounter the next enemy type. The jackals are like grunts, but can actually think and fire even faster than elites with plasma rifles. They can also pull the same overcharge trick as you, making them very dangerous when not paying attention. To be honest, this was the enemy type that gave me the most difficulty making this video. Their defining characteristic, though, is their riot energy shield that you can either shoot out of their hands or use the old reliable, grenade spam. Speaking of grenades, they come in two flavors. The frag grenades are Frag grenades. You know how these grenades work. They're just the same as every other type of grenade, and plasma grenades, which stick to things. They also have an EMP effect where you can knock out enemy shields, but I don't necessarily find that super reliable. I like to use these to soften up large groups of enemies, scattering the grunts and jackals in the process, and then closing in to take care of the elites. After this, you link up with some Marines, as you need to help them hold down on this Forerunner structure. What are the Forerunners? It doesn't matter. There's 3 books about it. Who cares? The point is, this is where you get the vehicles. The first one being the Warthog. Being dropped off by F.E.A.R, your friendly neighborhood dropship pilot for the entire game, is your non-cat-shaped vehicle of choice. It's fast, has a turret that when the AI decides it wants to hit something is actually quite helpful, and shows up several times throughout the game. After going through a 100% very real and natural cave, you have to rescue some Marines. Some of these encounters are harder than others, with the last one with the underground structures being a particular pain in the ass for me because I got stuck in this one room and I kind of had to not really save scum my way out of it, but I got killed sitting in that room far too much. And the area by the rocks being the easiest given the amount of cover you have. What this level shows is the amount of difficulty enemies can pose at distance. Because up close, it's very fair game, but at range, enemies can have the advantage sometimes, depending on what weapons you have. It's not an impossible level, but it certainly took me a lot longer than I wanted it to, and I'm surprised how much it kicked my butt. After rescuing all the Marines from the various structures, you realize that Captain Keyes has been taken prisoner. So, yeah, it's apparently your job to fix that problem. Truth and Reconciliation is a stealth mission. I'm sorry, stealth mission. Because the stealth can end immediately and turn into a balls-out shootout the entirety of the level the second you look at a grunt. You can backsmack most enemies, which kills them in one hit, and it can be useful if you want to thin an area out of certain enemy types. It was also the most difficult level in the game for me and took me about 5 hours. The rest of the levels took me anywhere between an hour to 2 hours. At least 30 minutes. But this level just annihilated me the entire way through. And the reason why is that you didn't have the Magnum. You start off with the sniper rifle, which is a very good weapon. I like the fact that it has no recoil. I really like the way it looks. It is very useful for taking out enemies at range, considering the fact that it's, a sniper rifle that's part of its job, and it's very useful for me for skipping firefights entirely if I want to. I just really enjoy using it. The issue is that it's not the Magnum, so this was a bit of a hoop I had to jump through. You can use the scope to turn the world green, though, so that's pretty fun. Also, the first new enemy that is introduced in this map is the Hunter. They always show up in pairs and are heavily armored and carry fuel rod cannons, which are basically just big rocket launchers. I should say that they're difficult to take out, but they're not. One shot to the back from the sniper rifle or Magnum will just drop them immediately. And while they are more aggressive on Legendary, it doesn't change anything. Also, they're made of
worms. It even fires worms.
After you're fighting your way to the ship and up into the gravity lift, which that area where you have to get on to the gravity lift, and that fight is the main reason why that level took me 4 hours, you get pulled onto the Covenant ship, which is quite literally nothing but purple curvy walls. Maybe they're Prince fans? I don't know. Also, the elites are invisible now. The stealth elites are annoying. They're not a pain in the butt, and all they do is just sneak up on you, and they have incredibly low health. Plasma grenade them. Introduced at the exact same time is the Gold Elite. And they're apparently zealots in this game, which I did not know until very recently. And unlike the endless purple hallways of small goblin aliens and bird monsters and weaker lizard people, these are the strongest enemies in the game. They do not fuck around. The high health combined with their agility and speed and the fact that they have energy swords and will charge you makes them a priority target. And unlike the Hunters, you can't cheese these guys. Even the Plasma Pistol Magnum combo doesn't always work due to their ability to outright dodge the charge shot. Kill them first, and fast. All of this while being stuck in a tiny hangar surrounded by enemies that just keep coming for about 10 minutes, including several waves of Gold Elites and Stealth Elites, so sounds real fun. You make your way through several purple copy-paste hallways and rooms through the armory, I think, and then the freaking hangar. Then you find Captain Keyes, who says that Halo has some sort of weapon on it, or it is a weapon, and he's not really clear and doesn't really know. All he knows is that the Covenant want it and he doesn't want them to have it. So you rescue Captain Keyes, he jet rams some Hunters with a dropship, and then he goes to this frickin' weapons cache that he keeps talking about, and you get sent to the Silent Cartographer. Do you like sand? No? Too bad. We're going to the fucking beach, and you better enjoy it, because now it's time for the Silent Cartographer, easily the most well-known level of the original Halo. because it was in the PC Halo 1 demo, and this was the level that was in that demo. Do you remember PC game demos? I do. I'm sad that they're basically gone now outside of indie titles. God, I feel old. Anyway, so you drop down onto this freaking island, and you immediately start getting shot at. And you rush up there with your Marine buddies, who usually tend to all die immediately, but for some reason, somehow, somewhere, they just lived in my playthrough. And I was kind of surprised by that. So good job, guys. I guess you live to die another day. Quite literally, based on this game's plot. And then you spend the rest of the level driving around at a warthog all over the island, because the beauty of this level is that it's very open-ended, and you have two ways of handling encounters. You go the way you're supposed to, where you're supposed to get locked out of the facility, and go the other way, where you make sure you don't get locked out. Because of the fact that I can just not get locked out and don't want to backtrack, I'm doing that way, because if you give me a chance to do the thing that is easier, I will generally take it. Anyways, you make your way to the interior part of the island, fighting Covenant forces along the way, and then you end up finding more hunters. And then they die, because they're literally harmless. And then you go into the facility after fighting more grunts, and then you end up killing more hunters who are completely useless. Why are they even here? I feel bad for them. I genuinely do, because these have tried so hard at being worm monstrosities, and I am just completely ruining their fucking day. So you push this button to unlock the door that's no longer locked. The unlocked locked door, because that makes sense. And then you're finding some stealth elites who are trying to kill you. You kill them because they're kind of a joke in this game if they don't have the element of surprise. And then you go outside and you slide down this thing, and then you end up finding the Pelican with a bunch of grunts and jackals around it. And this is where you find the rocket launcher. No, it works exactly as the way you think it would, and it's an absolutely fantastic weapon. And then you take the Warthog, and then you drive around to the other part of the map where you're originally supposed to go to. And usually people keep the rocket launcher after this point to make certain firefights inside easier. I keep the rocket launcher because I want to get the Warthog into places where it's not supposed to be. We are not the same. Because if you give me the opportunity to put the Warthog in a place where it's not supposed to go, I will do it.
I don't make threats. I make guarantees.
So after some extreme indoor driving, you end up making your way to the map room, which is where you learn the location of Halo's control room, which is very important, and that is where we are headed next. Assault on the control room is my favorite level in the game, hands down. You fight a couple guys and you end up making your way through this hallway, and you end up going into this room. You will see this room quite a lot. That's because most of the level is copy-paste of these hallways and these rooms, and bridges. Lots and lots of bridges. The bridges themselves have a decent amount of cover, but because of the fact that it's a confined space, you might as well be in close quarters, and as a result, I had to play quite aggressively to end up progressing through them, using lots of grenades and using the shade turrets when I could. This is the first level in the game where it truly opens up, throwing everything in the kitchen sink at you. It is a knockdown, drag-out fight from start to finish with vehicles and enemies absolutely everywhere. And now, stealth. Ah, shit! You get down to the ground level and start to open up into larger areas. You get to let loose with a sniper and rocket launcher, which is quite helpful given the fact that you encounter the Wraith, which is just a plasma mortar tank. So don't get hit. Understand? But all that doesn't really matter because you get a tank. Well, it's a tank, it's just it's not that good. The Scorpion in this game is a bit weird if I'm being honest. The main gun is incredibly inaccurate. I mean, this crosshair absolutely sucks. What is this thing? It's ugly and unusable. I hate this. The mounted machine gun is only useful within spitting distance, and you'd probably have a better time throwing rocks at the enemies. It drives perfectly fine, and despite all of these things, I don't care. It's a fucking tank. It makes short work of anything. Me, you, the aliens, your mother, your sister, your granddad, your local Minecraft server. All of it. Doesn't matter. Look at the way that it makes the hunters feel more useless than they already are in this game. You do eventually end up having to get rid of the tank, and then you end up crossing two more bridges, both of them side by side to each other, and I ended up just punching a bunch of grunts in the back to farm the grenades off of them, and I ended up getting enough that would probably be able to fill a salad bowl at the Olive Garden. After that, you get to this hallway. I don't like this hallway. Kill it with rockets. I ended up stealing a Banshee from this elite because I didn't want to go through the extra rooms, so I just ended up going straight to the control room and killing everybody that was guarding it. And after that, you plug in Cortana to the control room, she starts freaking out, and she tells you to find Captain Keys, and your character begins to run in the dumbest possible way. Like, why do you look like that? She also doesn't tell you why you should find keys, so that's good. Great job, Cortana. Please keep guiding me to random plot MacGuffins without telling me what anything means. 343 Guilty Spark does a really great job of making you feel like there's something very wrong. For one, there's no triumphant music, and it is quiet. Blissfully quiet. The only thing you hear is ambience. You come across a crashed pelican. You progress forwards past it, running into small groups of jackals and grunts. Fight through these as you approach what seems to be a forerunner structure. While on approach, you see human weapons fire coming from the structure, and jackals and grunts running away from it. You approach into the facility expecting to find Marines, where you find nobody. You see an elevator, and you begin your descent into the facility. You get off the elevator, and you see a sizable group of jackals and grunts hiding behind a door. Easy pickings with a grenade or two. Keep moving on, fighting only grunts and jackals. This mission does a really great job highlighting how threatening the jackals and grunts by themselves actually are, given the fact that you do not fight any elites in this level whatsoever. Odd. You continue moving through the facility. The unsettling darkness of a place once dormant for thousands of years still crawling its way into my 21-year-old spine. You see signs of struggle. Bloodstains on the walls here, barricades there, groups of grunts and jackals all clustered together in defensive formations. In one of the rooms, you see a giant hole in the ceiling, raining down some sort of green goo. That's a little weird. You come across a Marine hiding behind a door, screaming about not being turned into one of those things, and firing at you whenever you emerge. Behind him seems to be some sort of storage room with large, broken containers. There are corpses everywhere, and even some things are on fire. You find a locked door, and a helmet on the ground, belonging to Private Jenkins. Chief retrieves it and watches the feed, showing something else is down here with you. The captain is missing, and whatever it is, it's not the Covenant. Tension continues to build, and after everything about the Covenant's behavior sinks in, the level of fear they show towards an off-screen threat that was never showed towards anything else except for you, the Flood burst in, breaking down doors and immediately swarming you. This level, even now, is unsettling to me, even after playing it several times, and it is brilliant. The way the Flood are revealed in this game is a masterful piece of suspenseful horror, and I commend Bungie for executing it so effectively. The first of the Flood forms you're going to encounter are the infection forms. These guys look like popcorn. Not super dangerous when your shields are enabled, but once your shields get stripped, they will immediately suck all of your health out. Basically, if your shields are down, treat them the way you would treat a facehugger in any Alien game. The combat forms are reanimated by the infection forms, turning them into fleshy zombie monsters that charge at you and shoot at you in a giant horde of incredibly fleshy violence. And unlike their smaller brothers, these guys do not fuck around. They can use your own weapons against you. Human, Covenant, does not matter. It is all fair game. Also, they'll just get up off the floor after dying randomly. It's not explained how they do this. It's not that infection forms do that and bring them back to life. That's something that was introduced in 2. No, in this game, they'll just get up after taking a nap. Also, one important thing to note, plasma weapons are entirely useless against them. The introduction of the Flood throws the rulebook you spent the last half of the game learning out the window in regards to weapon choices. The assault rifle is going to be your friend, along with the next weapon you're introduced to, the shotgun. The shotgun in this game is absolutely amazing. This is up there on my personal list of some of my favorite FPS game shotguns. It's easily in the top 3. It doesn't touch F.E.A.R's shotgun, but it's damn close in my opinion. It is an incredibly satisfying, powerful weapon that tears everything to pieces. Also, it's fucking 8 gauge. I don't really have a place to talk about this. Normal shotguns are chambered in 12 gauge. The smaller the gauge, the bigger the shell. It's basically 12 gauge squared. It's huge, and it's not even gameplay relevant. I just think it's kind of neat. After you continue making your way through the facility, you find another elevator, and it takes you further down into the facility. Yeah, you're not out of the woods yet, pal. You still have rooms full of Flood monsters to continue fighting. And you continue to see more and more and more dead bodies, more blood, more barricades, and more visualizations of whatever the hell is happening is a lot worse than aliens. The Covenant's preferable than dealing with nightmarish flesh demons from beyond the stars. Thankfully, you do eventually make your way to an elevator that actually puts you out of the facility, and after finding some Marines and making your way towards a landing zone, all the while you are still getting chased by Flood, when you end up encountering the Xbox 343 Guilty Spark.
You're not even a person! You're a testicle!
He proceeds to let you know that he is the, quote, monitor of this Forerunner facility, and that you have to follow Forerunner Flood Containment Protocol, and that he needs your help to do so. But in order to do that, we have to follow him to the library. Fuck. The library is infamous for many reasons. A lot of people hate it. On Heroic and below, I would say it's a bit bland, but it's fine. I would go as far as to say that I actually enjoy it. But on Legendary, let me just say that if I could make the fucking map file a physical object, I would smash it into a million pieces with a fucking claw hammer. The entire level revolves around following Guilty Spark, waiting for him to open a door, climbing an elevator, rinse and repeat a few times, grabbing the glorified USB drive that is the index, since apparently only a reclaimer, that means you, can do that. If I wanted to get a USB drive, I'd go ask Randy Pitchford. You start off in a seemingly endless corridor that is nothing but gray walls and blue lights. It's neat visually, and honestly quite atmospheric, but given that the entire level looks like this, it's about as exciting as a space janitor's mop closet inside of a cosmic combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. Also, it's too fucking dark. Like, can you please give the Forerunners a fucking nightlight or something? Like, this one's $8 on Amazon for 4 of them. You can't tell me they couldn't fucking find something. Playing through this level felt to me like that one relative who overstays their welcome and keeps repeating the same damn story every single time. And part of this has to do with the level design itself, along with the actual fleshy goop flood monstrosities themselves. Is the gameplay repetitive? Sure, but no more repetitive than the rest of the game's similar encounters. But the aforementioned sameness and lack of distinction in its environments along with enemies creates a problem where it's very easy to get turned around. And due to the sometimes literal at points constant stream of flood coming towards you at any given time, getting turned around happens far too often. You can put yourself right back to where you started, making me scream at my screen like a banshee with a hangover. It doesn't help that the carrier form, the new flood enemy type that is the literal popcorn bag to the infection form's popcorn, which does nothing except carry those infection forms and explode, dealing massive damage to you if you're close by, as well as flinging you across the map, creates an entire stream of enemies that just come right towards you. And because of all of this, you will be fighting an uphill battle the entire way through. I mean, half the time I'm just holding the walk backwards button and shooting. If I wanted to play this game like Serious Sam, I'd fucking go play Serious Sam. The shotgun is required for this level, and if you don't have it, you're playing the game wrong. And honestly, this applies for the rest of the game. If you don't have it, you might as well turn this game off. The rocket launcher is incredibly useful here too, as long as you're not too close to enemies where you could easily blow yourself up. The worst offender of all the enemies, though, in my opinion, is the rocket flood, which can just spawn around corners and completely tank you, being the little camping fucking bastards that they are. The sentinels will show up eventually partway through the level and are actually quite helpful. They're drone dudes that fire lasers at enemies that will actually do a lot of damage towards them, and they're actually quite helpful when they show up. But easily the worst part of these levels is the sections where Guilty Spark goes and takes a fat piss shit coffee break, whatever the fuck he's off doing, and just leaves you in front of a door to wait for him to open it. These are the worst parts of the level because you often have nowhere to retreat to, and your back is often up against a literal wall. It's not fun, it's annoying, and it's bullshit. After you're done waltzing through the literal mountains of flood forms, you finally grab the index, and then the level ends. And if you think things are gonna get better, trust me, they're only gonna get worse. So after your fun 8 canonical hours inside of the Black Library, cruising around in your futuristic spacesuit, thinking you've got a handle on this whole Halo thing, you've got it figured out, it should be perfectly fine, Cortana just drops the ball on you and reveals to you that the Halo ring works by killing the Flood's food, not the Flood itself. It wipes out all life in the galaxy to starve them out. Chief, confronting Guilty Spark about this, who is completely baffled, now you have to destroy the Pillar of Autumn to destroy the actual ring to prevent the ring from wiping out the human race, blah blah blah. Guilty Spark hates you now, here's a Sentinel Beam. The next few levels are Assault on the Control Room, Truth and Reconciliation, and Pillar of Autumn backwards, with some new environments thrown in, or just the entire level backwards wholesale. 2 Betrayals is the most egregious example of this, with it just being Assault on the Control Room backwards entirely. Despite this, however, I don't feel like the levels themselves being completely backwards actually kills the gameplay. Rather, it provides an interesting look at how environments change in regards to story and context. So while it is the same environments, you get a different appreciation for them, so it doesn't really bother me all that much. The Sentinels are now no longer your friends, and while they can deal a lot of damage, they will go down from one shot of your plasma pistol. They are the best definition of glass cannon that I can possibly think of. First, you approach down this long hallway. This is complete bullshit. Firstly, you have nothing but a plasma pistol and a shotgun down a long hallway, where ranged weapons would be viable. It's not even the Sentinels that are the problem. It's the second wave of Covenant that pile in afterwards that irritates me, and then you get outside the hallways, and they decide to stick 2 elites in the fucking corner, because that makes sense! Go up this ramp and grab the Magnum. Leave the sniper rifle because it doesn't work on Flood, and you'll need weapons that actually function. I prefer sliding down the whole structure and snagging the rocket launcher down below, because enemy bypassing is the name of the game at this point, given the amount of enemies you'll end up having to deal with. Your main objective throughout this entire level is destroy these 4 generators that provide power to the ring somehow, some way. It's not really explained. You go through the same copy-paste rooms as before, you go through the same vehicle-focused environments, except with Flood this time, and it's a bit of a walk down memory lane crossed with a severe case of deja vu. The thing is here, the previously fair 1v1 between you and the Covenant has now been turned into an absolute free-for-all pissing match between you, the Covenant, and the Flood. And some people here might think that this is actually a bad thing. It isn't actually, at least in my opinion, because now you are given something that you didn't have before. Now more than ever in the game, you have the ability to choose when you want to get involved in a fight. And in general, I tend to let them wear each other down and then pouncing whenever I feel like it's most advantageous to me. Which, given the fact that if I intervene when both sides are fighting, is a general bad idea, because once you get seen by both parties, they will tend to focus more on you than each other, makes it easily the best option you have. So after destroying the random 4 cores, you have a plot-convenient teleport that is never brought up again or explained, because you need to retrieve the codes that Captain Keyes has for the Pillar of Autumn. Because if you don't have those codes, you can't initiate the self-destruct system. So you have to go all the way back to the Truth and Reconciliation to get them. So after some blunt force trauma to the head at the hands of Cortana, you go down more Purple Prince fangirl hallways once again for about 30 seconds until you fall straight down to a pit of something. We're not told what it is, but to me, it's probably the ship's septic tank. Most of the areas outside of the ship are larger areas broken up and connected by small pathways that are quite narrow. It also doesn't help that the level somehow manages to be even darker than the library, which I didn't even think was possible, but here we are. And after making your way through areas like this, where it's just Covenant and Flood jammed together ass to elbow, you finally get back onto the ship, where you make your way through the same hallways you made your way through the last time you were here. Eventually, you end up finding Keyes as a giant green amorphous blob. He's being turned into a proto-grave mine, and this is a very bad thing. So in order to prevent more bad things from happening, saying, I don't know, the proto-grave mine instructing the Flood how to refix the ship, and then taking it off to a place like Earth, Chief says no to this and punches a hole in Keyes' skull, not only killing him, preventing the proto-grave mine from actually being able to do anything, but also getting the codes that he needs. I don't know how to transition out of this, so here's a picture of a dog. Immediately after this, you run into the Spec Ops Covenant. And these are the main Covenant enemies you will be fighting for the last parts of the game. They wear all black armor and are tanky as shit. Even the grunts are tough. And these guys are armed with the best weapons the Covenant have, and they even have access to stuff you don't even get to use, like the fuel rod cannon, for example. I used these guys to wipe out the Flood crowd behind the locked doors because that made things much easier for me. So this is it. This is the final level of the game, the Maw, which is surprisingly atmospheric despite the fact it's just gray spaceship corridors. But after the events of the game, what was once mundane seem almost alien in a way. And given the fact you spent the entire game on an ancient alien ring world fighting parasitic blobs and split lip, that would seem somewhat reasonable. It also is a non-stop fight from start to finish, with hordes of Sentinels, Flood, and Covenant all gunning for your head. You fight your way to the bridge, intending on activating the Autumn Self-Destruct, when Guilty Spark shows up and turns it off, winning him the award of Biggest Buzzkill Prick of the Year.
You took everything from me!
And while the self-destruct sequence is now completely borked, doing it manually with rocket launchers seems to be the best option at this point. After this, you're basically just square peg round holing your entire way through the ship, trying to get to the engine room as fast as possible to prevent Guilty Spark from, you know, making everything worse. And he is in the engine room with you while you're blowing up the vents and stuff. I've tried to kill him. You can't. But that won't keep me from trying. So now that your ship's reactor is completely boned, it's time to leave. And you try to meet up with your old buddy Echo 419, and that does not end well at all. A longsword in a nearby hangar is your only ticket out. But in order to get there, we must use the old reliable, the hog.
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Oh yeah! Oh! Your mother, your mother, your mother, your mother. This is way better than any Fast and Furious sequel.
And cutting it far too close, you get on the longsword, you completely gun the engines, you get off of the ring explodes, and then the game ends. And that's Halo CE.
I think we're just getting started.
You know, if this game taught me anything, it's that aliens need to shower.